Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so excited to share this tutorial with you. So, to everyone that has been liking, commenting, and sharing my post, I say a very big thank you. If this is your first time here, I say you're highly welcome. Do well to like, share, and subscribe. And to my subscribers and the returning viewers, I say a very big thank you. Thank you so much. So in today's tutorial, I'll be learning how to make this beautiful bustier 6 pieces Ankara gown. If it is something you're interested in, now let's get into the tutorial. So I'm going to start by drawing my starting line, which will also serve as my shoulder line. And I've gone ahead to join another pattern paper because one will not be enough for the pattern. So from the starting line, I will mark down 10 inches, which will serve as my bust point. Then from there, I will go ahead and mark my under bust, which is 13 inches. I'll also go ahead to mark out my half length, which is also my waistline, and that's going to be 15 inches. I'm marking at several points so that when I connect with the line, it's going to give me a straight line. And now I'll go ahead and connect the lines before I move on with the other measurement. So now I can go on. Then the next thing for me is to mark out my hip line, and that is 23 inches. And I will just go ahead and also mark out my gown length, which is 40 inches. I already added 1 inch hemming allowance to make it 40 inches. So I'm just going on by marking at several points to give me a straight line, and I will also go ahead and connect it with my ruler. It wasn't easy marking from the top down to the hem line because my table is small, so I decided to mark out my gown length from the hip line, and like I said earlier, 14 inches. So I will just connect also with a straight line, and now I can go ahead to label all the lines I drew. I have my bust point, my under bust, my half length, which is also waistline, then my hip line, and also my gown length. Okay, so now the next thing to do is to mark out half of my shoulder measurement, which is 7 inches, and from there I will go down by 1 inch to serve as my shoulder slope. Then I have 3 inches for my neck width, and I'm just going to connect from the shoulder slope down to the neck width with a straight line like so. And from there I'll go down by 7.5 inches. From my armhole to get yours, just divide your bust by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So now I'm just going to connect it with a straight line, and I'm going to draw out another line like that, and that is going to serve as my chest line. So now I'll just go ahead and mark the midpoint of my armhole, and I'll go in by half of an inch. And on the chest line, I'll also mark the quarter of my bust measurement, and I'll just go ahead now and connect it with my French curve. So now I will just go ahead and mark out half of my nipple to nipple measurement, starting from the bust point. Then I'll also mark on my under bust, on my waistline, and I will also mark on my hip line down to the gown length. And once I'm done, I will go ahead and connect it in a straight line down from my bust point to the gown length with my ruler. So I'll go in by 0.5 inch at the center back, and I will mark it from the under bust line. Then I'll mark on the waistline, on the hip line also, and down to the gown length. And once I'm done, I'll connect it in a straight line with my ruler, as you can see. You can go in by 1/4 of an inch, but 0.5 works well for me. And once I'm done at the part going towards the side, I'll also go in and take 1.5 inches from my underbust down to my gown length like I did at the center front. And once I'm done, I'll also go ahead and connect the dots with my ruler. So at the bust point, I will go down by half of an inch on that line I drew earlier, and I'm just going to connect with my French curve. I'll make a curve down from my bust point to that line I make like so on the two sides to give me my curve. It was looking very straight for me, so I decided to clean it and make my curve and make that part curvy again. So just make sure it is not a straight line and it is not too curvy to give out a perfect bustier shape. And once I'm done, I'll go ahead and connect from the bust point to the half of my armhole as my princess dart. Just go ahead and connect from the bust point to the midpoint of your armhole in a curved line like that, not too straight. And once I'm done, I will go down from that part by 1.5 inches to serve as my princess dart bustier. And I will also go ahead and connect it down to the bust point again, as you can see. So I'll go ahead and extend that line I just drew now. I will extend it up by marking the same 1.5 inches I marked earlier, and I'll extend the line, and this is just like we are replacing the 1.5 inches that will be cut off as the dart, and also to make sure that the armhole is not short after joining on the fabric. And I will just go ahead and connect back like so, and that part I will also go ahead and mark what I measured on the armhole, and I will just connect it to give me a new armhole shape, as you can see. And that is what the princess bustier is looking like. Now I will go ahead and mark my neck, which is 3 inches wide and 3 inches deep, and I will just go ahead and connect it with my ruler. And now I will go ahead, I already marked out my measurement on the chest line, and I added the 1.5 inches earlier. So I will go down on my waist and mark quarter of my waist measurement, and I will go ahead and add the that I took, and I'll also go ahead and mark quarter of my hip circumference on the hip line, add the dart intake, which is 2 inches, and I'll also go ahead and mark also the same thing on the hip on my hem line. I also went ahead and had 3 inches at the hem line to give me that fullness at the side, since this gown is a 6x6. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to connect all the measurements I marked earlier. So I was trying to make use of my ruler, but I noticed it was too short, so I decided to use my hand to connect from the hip down to the hem line, and I'm just going ahead and tracing it out to make the lines visible. And once I'm done, I'll also go ahead and connect from the bust point, from the chest line down to the waist, and from the waist down to the hip. And we can already see the pattern giving out shape already. And now I will just go ahead and use my marker to make all the lines visible. So guys, thank you for watching so far, and if you are yet to subscribe, please do well to subscribe, like and share, and I'll also be in the comment section to answer any question. Thank you. Go ahead and also mark out my sewing allowance. I love doing that so that I will not forget on the fabric. So from the chest line down to the waistline, I marked out 1.5 inches, and from there down to the hem, I marked out 1 inches. This is because the from the hip to the down part is free already and doesn't need much sewing allowance. And I'll just go ahead and make it visible with my marker. And the dart part, I will also mark out to show where it will be cut out. Now I can go ahead and cut out my pattern paper. So this is not all for the front pattern, but before I continue, I will use this part I cut to draft out the back piece before I come over to the front piece. To cut out the back pattern, I've gone ahead to mark out 2 inches for my zipper allowance, and that is the line. And I'll be using the front pattern I cut out earlier to trace out the back piece. And what I will do is to go ahead and join the two pieces of the front parts together, as you can see, with the lines joining, as you can see. And I will go ahead and tape it down with my paper tape before tracing it out on the paper. Now that I'm done taping it, I will just place the front part on the line, on the zipper line, and I will go ahead and trace out the front part on my pattern paper with my marker from the neckline down to the armhole, then down, and that will serve as a basis for my back pattern. Okay guys, the next thing is to mark out the neck line of my back pattern, and I will go ahead and draw a straight line on my waistline. As you can see, it is very easy to identify the waist because of the curve, but it wasn't straight, so I decided to place the front pattern on it to make sure my line is straight and accurate. So I will just go ahead and clean off the excess line, and also I'll go ahead and mark out my chest line because I'll be using that to draft out my pattern. So from the waistline, I'll mark out the half of my nipple to nipple measurement down to the M line, and I'll go down by 1 inch from my chest line, and I'll draw a straight line connecting that part down to the gown length. And now I will go ahead and measure as my armhole, as you can see, and mark the half of it, and from there I will connect down to the line I drew earlier. So right here it was looking straight, and I decided to make my line again to make that princess that curve, and I'll go ahead and clean off the wrong line. Please, when you're cutting the neckline, make sure it extends to the zipper part. I forgot to draw it out of the zipper part. Okay guys, I will just go ahead and cut out the back pattern I drafted from the remaining pattern paper. And before I continue, I'll go in by half of an inch on my waistline to eliminate any zipper burge, and I will go down by 8 inches, and I will just connect my line, as you can see, from there down to the upper part and down to the 8 inches I measured below the waist to eliminate my zipper burge. And I will go ahead now and cut out all the parts that needs to be cut out. And I went ahead to label my pieces. I have my center back, I made a mistake, center back and my side back. Remember I told you that we are not done with the pattern for the front, but because I don't have much of a pattern paper again, so I will just go ahead and cut directly on my fabric. If you have enough pattern paper, you can also do that. So now I will go ahead and place my fabric on fold with the right side facing each other, and I will place my pattern paper like so, and I will mark out ½ inch for my sewing allowance down to my waistline. Then at the M line, I will go out by the inches I want for my extension, for my flame. So I decided to go in by 5.5 inches. Depending on how wide you want your flay to be, you can go in, or depending on the fabric, if you have much of a fabric. I was trying to manage my fabric, so from there I will just extend the line from my waistline like that down to the allowance I left, like that. So for the center front, we are going to cut on fold, and it's going to be one piece. It's going to be one piece. Now I can go ahead and cut it out. Exactly what I did for the center front is what I'll be doing for the side front also. I've gone ahead to make half an inch from my neckline down to my armhole, and I've also gone ahead to extend the end part and join it together. But at the side, I'm not going to be adding any allowance, because if you remember, I already added my sewing allowance to the pattern paper. So I will just go ahead now and cut at the side front on also unfold. And don't forget, at the side I already added my sewing allowance to the pattern paper, so I will not be adding any sewing allowance to the side. So for the front we have 3 pieces, and for the back now I will just go ahead and repeat what I did for the front also for the back. So from my waistline I will go ahead and extend the line, as you can see, for my center back. So because we'll be having a zipper at the back pieces is going to be 4 pieces, because the center back is going to be 2 pieces after cutting on fold because of the zipper allowance. So for the front we have 3 pieces, and for the back we are going to have 4 pieces. So I've gone ahead to mark out the extension for the side back, and I'll also go ahead and cut it out like I did for the other pieces. And guys, this is what it looks like after cutting, and I've gone ahead to also cut out the lining pieces. I decided to change my neckline into an asymmetric neckline, and I decided to show you guys. So I just went down by 5 inch from that part and drew a straight line, and at the other side I'll also go ahead and mark out the same 5 inch to serve as a guideline, and I will connect it like so, and I will just go down and make the slight curve from there down, and also make the curve there, and I have my asymmetric line. You can decide to make it wider if you want, and whatsoever you're doing for the front, please make sure you adjust the neckline at the back also to fit the new design if you want to change into asymmetric also, or any neckline you decide to use. So you might be wondering, I decided to cut it out on my lining first before cutting it out on my fabric, so in case there's any mistake I can easily get another lining to cut it out. And now I will just go ahead and place my lining on my fabric, the right side facing each other, and I will go ahead and trace out the new neckline design. And so guys, we can now proceed to the sewing. So I'll be sewing by placing the side front on the center front with the right side facing each other. Make sure you pick the right side, and I will just go ahead and sew at that part indicated with my finger, and this is what it looks like after stitching. I also added stay to the neckline to give it a structure. So after joining, you might notice excess fabric at the armhole side. Don't worry, it is better we have excess than it is not enough. Just go ahead and trim it off, and do that on the other part. And I've also gone ahead to stitch down the back piece, and I did exactly the same thing for the pieces, for the lining pieces. So guys, I will place my fabric, my front part and my lining with the right side facing each other like so, and I will go ahead and stitch down the neck part. I will stitch down part, and I'll also go ahead and stitch the sides I indicated with my finger, and also the hem of the gown. I'll do that for the front piece, and this is what it looks like after stitching. So I will just go ahead and turn it in through one of the armhole, and once I'm done I will go ahead and give it a good press. Just like I did for the front piece, I will also go ahead and stitch down the two back piece with the lining, and once I'm done I'll also go ahead and turn it out exactly like I did for the front piece, and I will also give it a good press. So guys, to join the two shoulders, I will place the two parts with the right side facing each other, and I will turn it in by the back lining I will turn it in such a way that the fabric is facing the fabric and the lining is facing the lining, and I will go ahead and stitch it down and repeat the same thing for the other side. And this is it. You can see how neat it is looking. At the time of this video, I did not have any spare zipper, so I decided to close up the zipper allowance in order to join the two sides. So for the sewing allowance, remember that we already used part of the sewing allowance to turn on the lining with the fabric. So all you have to do is just to calculate the remaining sewing allowance you left on your pattern and mark it out on the side. This is it, guys, after joining the two sides. So I will just go ahead and attach the ruffle I bought for my sleeve, and I will just turn in my fabric to the right side, and I will place my ruffle for the center like this. I will find the midpoint, the center of it, and I will go ahead and pin it down and stitch round, and repeat for the other sleeve, and we are good to go. Thanks for watching. Bye.